No idea why I didn't think of this before, but yeah, we're definitely going to start adding this content into be a rant of the week. And this week's rant's going to go out to colleges. Colleges. You out there that are stealing. You fuckers are stealing and you know it. You bastards. I don't know. Talk about damn collusion. My God. And like I keep driving home this point, I have no I have zero. I am right down the middle. All I do is call balls and strikes. And boy, I see nothing but strike after strike after strike. And I've been seeing it for decades now. This myth, I don't know if these guys went on an actual campaign. I bet they did, because there's probably no other way this kind of racket could have happened just arbitrary. There's no way it could have happened by itself. This had to have been an absolute campaign, which is to say that kind of what I remember my old boss, Bob Big, I remember, said one day, you've got to create this disease. Whatever the disease is, don't worry about it. You go create it. Why would anybody do that? I asked, like an idiot. He said, so you can sell the cure. What are you talking about, Mike? You're gonna manufacture that disease so that you can get rich off of selling the cure, right? This is exactly what these guys did when they created this. And don't get me wrong, obviously for let's call it the medical field, let's even call it the FBI, like law enforcement, that kind of thing. There's no way. Science, there's no way. You know how much money you'd have to replace that system, right? That's just like the police department. How are you gonna ever really replace the police department? The people that think, oh, well, that might be a socialist thing, that we got to do it. That's the part of government another part of government that we don't need. I don't think that you could substitute that because of how much the infrastructure costs that they've already built. However, I do think that it's entirely possible to substitute things like, and I don't know that I'm the only, I've heard a great amount of information already on this by people like Ty Lopez and people like Neil Patel. I think I've heard some content on this exact idea, but there's some folks out there that got these grandiose ideas of one day replacing what we come to know as the form of higher learning, the Institute of Higher Learning, because is that really the only way that you can get an education, is by going to a building that was built a decade ago or a century ago? There's a ton of overhead involved in these gigantic, massive institutions, and then you've got these. I don't have any problem with the institution. Besides, I've seen it now time and time again in the actual real world, and it's absurd that this kind of thing has not been uncovered. And what I'm talking about is, let's take, for instance, call it 10 years ago. 10 years ago, it's 2008, so 2008, almost 2009, I was moving up the ranks. This is during the recession. I had been moving up the ranks at an insurance company and continued to do so. I actually got promoted shortly after the recession. Partially was because they knew I could do another person's job and they fired that other person, but and I could juggle kind of both things at once. But the point is that back then, getting promoted gave me the opportunity to work with folks that did go to college. Prior to that, I was in underwriting and underwriting supervisory positions and in underwriting management positions, and very few people in that particular office had been formally educated. So I hadn't seen, they were just the unknown. Who are these guys that went to college? Oh my God. I didn't know anybody that went. I knew one guy, Chris Marquez. Chris Marquez went to college. I didn't know anybody else who. I mean, there were people who I knew that did, but no real significant good friends. Like, we hung out together, kind of thing. We were, we called each other on the weekends. We hung out, went to the movies. There were no significant friends like that in my life that went to college. Out of high school, we all, struggled to find employment locally, and that was about it. But. So the one person I did know that went to college was my brother. My older brother was a damn genius, and he ended up going to college. Great decision for him. Now he's a lawyer, but he's always been 10 steps ahead. My God, my brother he's a genius. He's that freak of nature. But so him going to college made sense, because in my mind, he was on such a different level anyway. That's the kind of guy that goes to college, right? So I hadn't really come in contact with folks that had went to college, besides the people that were teaching us, right, in high school, and now, or the people who own the company that I would go work for, or something like that. I had worked for a small printing company when I was 15. I'm sure the owner of that place went to college. Then you take, for instance, so finally, I get promoted. I get to work in a tight environment, corporate office with a bunch of you people that spent all this money on college. And I gotta tell you, don't get me wrong, the Bob Biggs of the world, the Jeff Kennys of the world, I learned a ton from, and I think and I believe that part of the reason why they're so bright is because they did get formally educated. But I personally also believe that form of education could have been delivered in a different way. They could have learned that information otherwise. I don't think that you had to sacrifice $40,000 in exchange for some of these bright, beautiful concepts. Put it this way, I didn't sacrifice the 40 grand. I went and learned a lot of the same stuff in a work environment. Now, they did have to explain some things to me every once in a while, and every once in a while they did have to slow the conversation down a little bit, but in other areas I had to slow the conversation down a little bit also, so that it wasn't just like it was a one-way street there, and they knew it. There was no hemming and hawing over is this the case or not. It was just everybody kind of everybody understood that there were certain things that I was good at, certain things that they were good at. And all that to say this is that over all those people that I had ever come in contact with that spent anywhere between $25 to $45 or $50, $60,000 worth on their education, that were working in this corporate environment, not one of them was head and shoulders above the others, except for the geniuses that were they did, no matter what, they were going to get that they were going to get that information. And some of those guys, Tim Summers, Brian McSweeney, those are the types that no matter what, they got it. They're lawyers. They had to end up going to college. I guess this whole rant is now I'm seeing. I'm rubbing shoulders with these bastards that's their thing, is they went to college, and I'm noticing, damn, these guys are lazy. Some of them, gals too. I'm an equal opportunity shit talker here. There were plenty of the women that came out of college and they were just lazy to, I think, and I don't know because I didn't go, but it seems like there's a lot of theory. There's a lot of someone talking and bloviating about something that it was put in a book anywhere from, I don't know, 5 to 75 years ago. And that's what they're regurgitating information on, which is fine, except for every 4 to 5 years information's doubling at this point, right? Where you can't capture. Let's triangulate and just get down to let's talk about business, right? Does a business school really need to exist this day and age? Could you put together coursework, online coursework in a series that's educational, that's entertaining, that's valuable, that is going to deliver immediate opportunity in addition to an immediate skill set? Because even I'm looking at it, and all those years I had to hire. For about 10 years I was in the hiring process of people, and guess what? There were nobody that we looked at that wasn't a college graduate, and every one of these fuckers that came through wasn't ready right out of the gate. They just weren't ready. No offense to any of them, but they just weren't ready. Which, after you get done paying in excess of $25,000, my thought is that you're ready. My thought is that you're ready to rock. Imagine going to trade school, you wanting to be a mechanic, you pay 25 grand and you're not a mechanic the next day, or, after school's over. Like, it's ridiculous. And then they don't even place you to have a job. And I saw this from the standpoint of, okay, here's the after effect. They get out of college and I still got to teach them all this bullshit that they should know. And now I got to teach them even how to think. That was the one thing I thought that the two things that I thought that I was always brainwashed into thinking that college was going to deliver was, one, you would learn how to think. Number two, you would be more well-rounded in the amount of information that you knew about. But to me, it doesn't matter how to dissect a fucking frog. That's not going to help me make a sale or make the next business deal or make the next video, cut the next podcast, edit the next video, write any of those descriptions. Like, and I get it, there's some part of the process that I could somehow overlay into my thought process later. But in terms of how that actually works for me today, there's no leverage involved in that. There's no, how in the hell do you get out of one of these classes and then turn around and start making it work for you? How in the hell do you pay, and not only pay, I wish it was just pay and then take 3 to 4 months worth of classes 3 times a week. How do you reconcile these things and still come out and not be, you could get stuck a guy in the business world and give him an internship, and in 2 years he's going to learn way more and make money at the same time as he would in 2 years of just hearing about old ass theory. And he's going to be way well rounded in terms of he's going to understand a whole host of different things depending on what he's doing. But I say all that, put it this way, this 10,000 hours theory, right? And people in the business world know what I'm talking about here too. The 10,000 hour theory that became really super famous and super, there's just this theory that everybody now gloms onto. Guess what? That's only 5 years. In the real world, if you have an 8 to 5 job, that's it's basically 2,080 hours per year, 2080. 2,080. Let's just call it 2,000 hours. 2,000 hours times 5 of those years is 10,000 hours. So after 10,000 hours of doing something, if you're 8 to 5 on it, like you would be in the real world, you're going to learn real world stuff, not stuff that was in a book 5 years before you started reading it. And by the time you get done with it, you're already 2 years into the future, or a year into the future. It's even that much more obsolete. That's not even my biggest problem. None of this is my biggest problem. I don't even care about the government involvement in the loans. None of that. None of that. All of that, to me, is just more shitty icing on the cake. I appreciate everybody tuning into part 1 of my rant and real questions on if a college degree in 2018, 2019 is obsolete or if it's just overpriced. If you want to know actually what bothers me the most in this whole process, and what I think some potential solutions could be, stick in there. Part 2 is coming out Tuesday. In a couple days, it'll be Tuesday, probably something like the 23rd or something like that. 24th of September is going to be coming out Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning. So stick in there, subscribe, give a thumbs up if you don't mind, and if you like the content. And thanks again. This is Mike from Your Car Dealer Bond, and I will catch you on the next one.